Hi everybody, what's going on? Welcome to Sit Down. I'm DJ Sixsmith. We've got a very special edition of the Sit Down, joined by Reverend Jesse Jackson. How are you, sir?
Mr. DJ, to you, sir.
It's a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you.
So you've been in New York City for a couple days. You got your big economic summit going on down in Wall Street. So
well, you know,
how did this all come together?
It's a big deal. You know, this is the year 2019. 400 years ago, African Americans began to land on the shores of the East Coast, and much of the trading commerce came out of Wall Street. We were the commodity and the commodity exchange. We built the wall on Wall Street, struggling with the Dutch. We have roots there. African burial grounds is there. And in our phase of development, we have become free but not equal. Freed from 244 years of slavery, 100 years of Jim Crow, the right to vote, the last stage of access to capital, industry and technology. So dealing with the banks to invest to green line, red line America becomes our challenge. And what race discrimination means is even though you may be qualified, you don't get opportunities. So it's all about having a fair share of board seats and e-suites and employment vertically and horizontally, and procurement. We hire lawyers, advertising, marketing. Because in the real sense, what's missed by discrimination, by the wall around the cities, 100 largest cities are majority black and brown. Represents market, money, talent, location, and growth. So we come together for 3 days to talk about that. And on the Wednesday, we'll have Congressman Meeks. I'll do a dialogue with Congresswoman, with President Janetta Cole, former of Bennett College, about the 400-year journey. That night, we're interviewing the president of Microsoft. And Thursday morning, the president of CBS Aetna, Larry Merlo. At noontime, we have the minister's luncheon, led by Reverend Sharpton and the Reverend Cleaver from Kansas City. That night, we'll have our banquet, and Layla Hathaway is singing. Oh, wow. And on Friday morning, Congresswoman Maxine Waters will speak. She is the chairman of the Finance Committee, and so now we have the power to come back to Wall Street 400 years later with subpoena powers to end patterns of discrimination.
Yeah, it's an incredible journey when you take it all the way back there. And we were talking before, you've known Reverend Sharpton since you were 13 years old. So take me back when you guys were young boys. What was it like growing up together?
Watch them grow up. You know, a lot of boys in Brooklyn were really Connie Hawkins fans. They were really basketball fans. Sharpton always wanted to be a leader. He always wanted to assert himself and take the risk. He went to jail with us. He may have been 13. We were fighting the A&P, opening up chain store doors. He's always been that freedom fighting mode. Now he's his rhythm. He now has a TV show. He's a writer. He's a speaker, and he's wanted to be heard.
You mentioned Connie Hawkins. You were an athlete back in the day. Who were some of the athletes that you looked up to as a young guy?
Connie Hawkins.
He was your guy? Why was he your guy?
Well, he had that special something. You know, you Connie Hawkins, then you get Dr. Z, then you get Michael Jordan. But Connie Hawkins was kind of the father of this.
It was before everybody else.
Big hand stuff, you know. But Jack Robinson was the guy. I mean, Jack Robinson. He was playing at the time when they put black cats in the dugout in Brooklyn. Time when his own teammates, if he got spiked or got hit with the ball, they never cleared the dugout to defend him. His team hoped he would get a hit, hope he wouldn't get a hit. They were pulling for him and they were mixed. But because of Jack Robinson and Pee Wee Reese, really, a white teammate, and Branch Rickey, who took the big risk, he broke the barrier. And that laid the groundwork for breaking barriers in football, basketball, baseball. And so Jack had the big breakthrough. But then all the athletes now have free agency.
Right.
Because
of Kurt Flood. Didn't have that before. Yeah, Kurt Flood was huge.
The owners owned the players, and they tried to sell him. He was an all-star. He didn't want to go. He used 13th Amendment. Right. And he was freed. And then another one was the ball player. What's his name? From a basketball player. Free agents come out of school early.
Oh, I mean, there've been a bunch of guys come out of school early.
No, the guy who took the risk for it. I'll think of his name in a minute. Spencer Haywood.
Oh, Spencer Haywood, right? Yeah, he was really the first trailblazer to do it.
Well, he took this. All the guys that can get one and done and two and done because of Spencer Haywood. So athletes, in many ways, have set a tremendous pace for our culture. When I see Alabama playing Clemson in the big game. I remember a time when George Wallace stood in the school door and said, blacks cannot come in. Yeah. And they had to take Luther and Lucian to school with federal marshals. When Harvey Gantt was at Clemson with federal marshals. Now you see those players playing the best in the world they are at the age group because barriers have come down. And that's part of our mission, to bring down barriers and to build bridges.
Yeah, I mean, it must be incredible for you because you lived through all these times, and now you see what's going on today.
The NBA All-Star game this weekend in Charlotte, North Carolina. Team now owned by Michael Jordan. When I first went to North Carolina, Michael couldn't have attended UNC.
Yeah.
Now you see these players, a given ball game maybe more integrated than the church. Because people find in the ball something they have in common. And it's uniform color versus skin color. And it's direction versus complexion. And the reason why players, black and white, can play together, and the sports guys say Alabama's going to win, but Clemson won. You accept to win with grace and lose with dignity, because whenever the playing field is even and the rules are public and the goals are clear and the referees are fair, the score is transparent, anybody can win, and everybody has an opportunity. That's what makes it a real exciting event every time it's played. Yeah,
no question about it. And like you said, sports have been such a huge part in breaking those societal norms.
Well, historically, with David and Goliath,
right?
Samson and the Philistines. Historically, those who have these blessed bodies and good values are transformative. I remember when I was a kid, and the Yankees would beat the Dodgers every year, some kind of way. And Sandy Koufax, I can't pitch to open again the World Series because I'm Jewish. And we taught Exodus 13:3 to stop and thank God delivering us from slavery. And Sandy would not pitch. He had a sense of conviction. Athletes have played a dominant role in leading to make America better.
So when you take a look at things today versus things in the 60s, I mean, we live in really divisive times, but do you think things are worse today? Were things worse back then? What do you make of that?
Things are better now. We have more tools. We had to make brick without straw. We had to make democracy without the right to vote. Now we come back to Wall Street with 55 African Americans in the Congress. No matter what Trump thinks, Maxine Waters, chair of the Finance Committee, no matter what he thinks, Silicon Valley thinks, Reverend Jesse Jackson is chair of technology and engineering, no matter what they think about national security. Ben Thompson of Mississippi chairs that committee now. So 55 blacks in the Congress now, 38 Latinos and 20 Asians.
Yeah, it's awesome to see.
That's a big difference of growth.
Doesn't matter about this one person in office. All this is going on. So.
It's going at the same time. And Trump has done some mean things to hurt people, I think. Tried to take away the legitimacy of Barack Obama by saying he was not born here.
Right.
Those who didn't support him bit that bait, but it was not true. Saying a Mexican judge could not be fair. Some bit that bait. Equating the marchers in Charlottesville with the Ku Klux Klan and the Nazis. So he continues to incite fear rather than hope. And we deserve better than that. And I think that because women who felt so aggrieved voted in such great numbers, they changed the paradigm this past November. And that's what's making America great, I think, is the right to fight for the right.
Right.
You don't have to go on the ground with terror. You can fight above the board. Use your vote, use your money, use your mind, and make things happen.
Yeah, and that's what Barack Obama did. And you look at 2020 and Kamala Harris and Cory Booker. I mean, it must be cool for you, somebody that ran for president, to see that.
But this hate factor cannot be underestimated. I mean, I talked with people in Kentucky last year who were they wanted affordable health care. When their children stay on medical care until they're 26, when they have free mammograms and early examinations and the like. Pre-existing conditions to be dealt with. They didn't want Obamacare. That's what Obamacare is.
Right,
they want an omelet, didn't want the eggs, because they put his picture on the book. They were throwing dots to the picture,
his name
the
and his picture.
So they were misled by vain leadership, and so we have some obligation. We've survived apart. We must learn to live together, and when we live together, the fruits are sweet, and they come in multiples. When I see Clemson play in Alabama, I'm attached to that because I grew up in South Carolina. I couldn't attend Clemson. I couldn't apply to Clemson. I couldn't apply to the University of South Carolina. But now these barriers are down because somebody paid the price, and those prices are still being paid because we didn't know how good baseball could be until everybody could play.
Right. Yeah.
We don't know how good football can be, basketball, how technology can be. With the best of us. Often is in the margins, and we want one Big Ten America. We're all in, and nobody's out.
Yeah, the best of us is all of us together. And
indeed.
You think about your time in South Carolina when you're attending the sit-ins. Never could have imagined that it would lead to this. But why was it important for you to do something bigger than you? Why were you inspired to get involved with the civil rights movement?
It was a matter of dignity. I came home from school, had to do a speech, 25 annotated bibliographers. Went to the colored library, didn't have enough books. She sent me to the central library. She said, I'll have the books for you in 7 days. I said, ma'am, but I need the books now. She said, 7 days. Police said, you heard what she said. I had to leave. I went to back and I cried. Then 8 of us went to the library. We were jailed, trying to use public library. And one thing leads to another. Then we were jailed trying to use restaurants and hotels. The day Dr. King gave the speech in Washington, what's called the I Have a Dream speech, from Texas to Florida to Maryland, we couldn't use a single public toilet. Black and brown soldiers had to sit behind Nazi prisoners of war on American military bases. Right. We couldn't buy ice cream at Howard Johnson. We couldn't rent a room at Holiday Inn. In our own country, these guys had just come from Europe and Germany fighting for other people, not free themselves. I think that generation is a blessed generation because they fought abroad and they fought at home to make America better. So there's a stiff wind blowing there toward hostility and division, but women are fighting back for gender equality. Blacks and browns are fighting back, and we're winning.
Yeah, no, you absolutely are. And there have been great strides have been taken. And you mentioned Dr. King, and those were such incredible times for you guys. When you still think about him today, what sticks out in your memory? What made him such a unique man?
Well, he had the courage of his convictions. He was very intellectually able and a vision. Dr. King finished high school at 15, finished college at 19. He got a seminary degree at 22 and his PhD at 26. Smart guy.
All-time smart, yeah.
All-time smart. And not just smart, but had courage. Had a vision of a new America where would not be the barriers of you can't use the toilet, you can't use the restroom, you can't use the library, you can't. He saw a new America. And today when the big game is played in Atlanta, Georgia, I see, on the one hand, I see Governor Maddox with his axe handle saying blacks can't come here. And Wallace on the other hand saying, block the door. And Dr. King is there saying, let's live together. So I see 100,000 people in the stadium living together. That's the King dream.
He would have been proud of that game.
It's the King Bowl.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of King, we were talking off camera about that King in the Wilderness documentary. And you guys spent a lot of time in Chicago with the Poor People's Campaign and what you're trying to do in Chicago. When you think about your home city, what makes Chicago such a special place and what else can be done to bridge the gap in terms of economics in Chicago?
Especially the Midwest. More that things kind of come to Chicago, east, west, north, and south. It's that kind of city, built on the river, strong industrial base, exciting, attractive, great universities, great hospitals. It's exciting as a city. But then there's some parts that are neglected. The 8 communities, unemployment above 20%, poverty above 40%, youth unemployment above 55%. And in that neglected zone, guns in, drugs in, jobs out. And you see the evidence of that in the cycle of despair and violence. We must address that. And this year's round of candidates, they must address the need for an urban policy. How do you green line the red line zones and choose education over incarceration? I went to Cook County Jail a few years ago, 10,000 basically students there on pretrial detention. Some that 1 to 5 years waiting for trial. So we said, I tell you what, all those who are in here on pretrial detention, who can't make bail, we're going to pay the money and bail you out. The wheels in motion. The judge met with about 50 of the kids. They had been in jail longer than the time, so he just let them go. And all around the nation, we're trying to deal with this issue of pretrial detention, where many of our youth should be while they're in jail, they should be learning how to do computer work, apps and codes and programming. We're trying to get computers in the jails, use that spare time they have, that wasted time, learning the skills. They come out with a skill, a job in transportation, reduce recidivism. And so that becomes, Chicago has become a kind of model for us, a model for open housing. We marched in 1966. Blacks had certain areas they could not move into. We were limited, we were overcrowded, compacted. That changed because of Chicago. And out of Chicago, Barack Obama came, an African-American president. Out of Chicago came the U.S. Senator, Carol Moses LeBron, and Barack Obama, and
Michelle as well. You knew her as a young girl, right?
Well, Michelle and my daughter, they went to school together. She would go up to the house.
What do you remember about Michelle?
She's just very smart. Very from a very sound and stable family. Stable families produce stable children.
Yeah.
And
they got some good children too, the Obamas.
Oh yeah, her brother basketball player and a scholar.
Yep, no doubt. So speaking of Chicago, big story going on right now in Chicago with Jussie Smollett. You know, there was potentially this attack, there was potentially a hoax. I mean, you've been following it along. What do you make of the whole situation?
Disappointed, really, because
How so?
at the first, the narrative of black or gay being attacked is prevalent, so it's easy to believe. I mean, then the story started unraveling. So now you have the case of, is it a hoax or was it real? There'll be an investigation. Let the investigation determine the outcome. We should not prejudge. We jump to a conclusion prematurely on the front side. Now let's just wait a minute, let the investigation run its course, and that way don't put due process on recess. Due process takes time, and we should honor that process.
Do you think Jussie should speak out about everything going on right now, or just wait it out at this point?
Well, now he's in the court process. He should honor the process.
And do you believe him?
I don't know.
You got to wait and see.
I want to wait and see. I mean, what he said first was a compelling narrative. There's other information coming out now. We just don't know. But rather than judge him harshly or judge him lightly, let's let the investigation determine the outcome.
I mean, you've seen a lot of different situations like this over your years. How do you think this situation affects maybe the next person who comes out about their story?
Well, I don't know. In Chicago, the police said that Laquan McDonald approached them, threatening them with a knife. He was shot 16 times, going the other direction. So the police lied. And
you've had your run-ins with Chicago police over the years, too. So do they have the same credibility in your eyes with everything?
Well, some of those who've been killed, 80% have not been resolved. So there's a tension about what the police say versus what people say. But lately, people have begun to become more active in juries. Only those who register to vote can be on the jury. And we got Van Dyke, who was in jail now because of the Laquan McDonald killing. So because we're fighting for more tools with which to work, change is coming.
So when I look at your life, you're in your late 70s, you're still out there doing it, you're still out there talking. What continues to inspire you today?
I'm driven every day by hope and by new possibilities. The reason I'm against walls, as it were, if you have a wall between people, other side of the wall is ignorance, fear, hatred, and violence. The walls come down, there's less ignorance, less fear, less hatred, and less violence. And so we learn to function together. On the other hand, if you put a wall between two seeds of equal strength, you water both, one will grow tall with multiples of fruit, and one will stay stunted. Tall is not better, the smaller is not weaker, except that the one that has photosynthesis, the sunshine, blossoms. So when walls come down and bridges are built, we always do better. There's a new South today. You couldn't have had the Carolina Panthers and Atlanta Falcons behind the cotton curtain. You couldn't have had the Dallas Cowboys behind the cotton. You couldn't have South Carolina State with #1 in tire production now. Boeing's in the South, BMW's in the South. Because when walls come down, we all prosper. And that's what we must, in all of our doing, must learn to live together as brothers and sisters, not die apart as fools.
Absolutely, and having conversations just like this. And you know, sometimes they can be difficult, like you think about in sports. And obviously the last couple of years with Colin Kaepernick, we've had to face some things that we may not want to talk about. But for Colin Kaepernick stand and take a knee.
Athletes have that special something that make them winners. So a Jack Robinson chooses to take the suffering for
the greater good.
For the greater good. A Kurt Floyd sacrificed his career for agency. Spencer Haywood sacrifices and says, I have a right to play because I can function, don't let me have to live much. He won. And Colin Kaepernick is winning. So every time these athletes push the bar back, because they're so big and they're touch space with so many people, it makes us better. And so we thank God that he and the NFL have worked out the settlement now.
Yeah.
Hopefully he'll be back on the field next year because he can play.
He most certainly can play. And you've seen some good quarterbacks over your years. You know he can ball, right?
He can ball.
Yeah, no doubt. And I think one of the things that you said in the past is that when you talked about Dr. King, you know, they love him as a martyr, but they didn't like him as a marcher. And you know, I feel like we've seen that consistent theme, whether it's Jackie Robinson, Muhammad Ali, Dr. King. Does that bother you in any way?
It does. When Ali could talk, they didn't want to hear what he had to say.
He lost 3 years of his career.
When he couldn't talk, they wanted him to be a spokesman. Confused about his greatness was. Here's a guy in the height of his career, sacrificed millions for a peace process that he eventually won. When Trump goes to meet with the head of North Korea next week in Vietnam, That's the war that Ali said was the wrong war.
Yeah.
It was a racist war, and it had to end. It did end, and we did not win the war. We shouldn't have been involved in the first place, but he sacrificed to help make the peace possible. So when they go there, they held Ali because he was a big factor in that peace. And so again, whether it's David fighting Goliath or Samson and the Philistines, athletes who have these special bodies and special opportunities must use their strength to make life better for the weaker among us.
Yeah, it's all about using your platform. And Reverend Jackson, before we let you go, you're here in New York, you're talking about bridging the economic gap. When you look at 2020 and potentially the next president of this country, who do you want to see potentially, and what are some of the things that can be done to help bridge that gap economically for people of color?
You can only participate if you register and vote. Those who don't vote lose the right to criticize. There's very able people running this time. You have Cory Booker, you have Kamala Harris, you have Elizabeth Warren, you have Bernie Sanders in the race now.
Do you have a favorite so far?
No, it's premature. I know most of them, I like them, but let them argue their case. All of them are supporting Medicaid now for the poor. Mm-hmm. All of them support protected right to vote now. Issues are fundamental, all of them are in that same groove, so somebody's going to break out something so unique and so compelling that can't be ignored. But maybe the strongest may not even be in the race yet. We don't know what Beto O'Rourke is going to do out of Texas.
Joe Biden, maybe?
What Biden is going to do, or what the mayor of New York, de Blasio, may do. We don't know yet. So it's no need to jump in before we can see and look at what we're seeing. I'm impressed with the values these guys represent. They all represent one big tent America, inclusion, and they represent an antithesis to polarization and hatred of today. We should be a nation of hope, healing, not hurt and hate. Hope and healing, not hurt and hate. That's America at its best.
Well, Reverend Jackson's people like you that keep us hopeful. Thank you so much for coming in.
DJ, you're the man.
I appreciate that. Thank you so much. All right, everybody. We'll see you next time here on The Sit Down. Thanks so much.